Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and as always, it's great to have you join us here today. Every week, I either bring a guest onto the show or I'll dive into a new idea or revisit the foundations of what it takes to succeed in the salon industry today. And with every episode, I will aim to bring you practical and actionable opportunities that you can run with in your business today. Now today I am joined once again by Hayley Mears, whose area of expertise is Instagram and Canva. Hayley has also been a contributor to our marketing course, which is open for enrolment on Monday, the 16th of March. In the fast-moving world of digital marketing and the constant platform and algorithm updates, it's important to be on top of the changes and the opportunities that change presents for you and your business. So in today's podcast, we're going to discuss the three-step structure needed for a successful Instagram carousel. We're going to talk about why the Instagram algorithm now rewards saves and shares over likes, and what are the top three takeaways that you should be doing to ensure that your Instagram marketing is working effectively for you in 2026, and lots more. So without further ado, welcome back to the show, Hayley Mears.
Thanks for having me.
Hayley, it's great to have you back again. It's a really important part of the marketing course that we've been working on together. For me to have you dip in and out of our weekly podcast to give people, insights on different things that are happening in the world of particularly Instagram and Canva. So look, let's jump straight in today. And I want to begin with this question by asking you about the three-step structure that every good carousel needs to adhere to. We're going to talk a little bit about carousels, and this whole call is really going to be essentially about Instagram. So what are the three-step structure, so to speak, that's needed today for a successful Instagram carousel?
Well, I think a carousel, just to, kind of explain on a foundation level to everyone, can be up to 10 different slides, and that will probably extend to even more in the future. So you have the ability to take someone on a bit of a journey and tell a story. And from a marketing perspective, the first slide of that carousel is basically telling, or in many cases teasing, what the content is going to be. So creating a really great hook on that first piece is important because you need to give someone a reason to slide and swipe across and have a look at the rest of the story and go on that journey with you. Everything that sits in the middle needs to be the value. And that value is something that they can take away, a learning, a piece of education, or anything that is a high reward piece of content for them. And that could be told in a number of different ways over a number of different slides, depending on what the topic is. But you should always end the carousel with your call to action. And we can talk a little bit more about, what I suggest in terms of that call to action. But those would be the three pieces that kind of make up the structure of something that's going to perform really well.
Okay, so it's a hook at the beginning, so something to get them engaged straight away, and then the content bit in the middle, and then a call to action at the end. They're the three things that every carousel's got to have. I know that we've been talking a bit about how important carousels have become all of a sudden. Have they superseded videos, or is it just that carousels are having their moment in the sun again?
I would say they're not superseding videos. However, they are growing faster than what videos are. So therefore, they're kind of having a moment. They hadn't quite a significant moment, but more so in an album sense, because you could have a Facebook album previously and Instagram didn't have that function. So carousels was used to, facilitate a collection. However, now I see it being used as a collection or something that's very specific in the story and the narrative of one topic, not multiple topics.
Right, okay. What would be an example of a good hook that you've seen, or maybe it's on your own Instagram or someone else's that you've seen where you thought, wow, that is such a great hook?
Well, I find hooks very difficult to write and to create. I think they are really hard because you don't want to tell the person the information you're about to give them. You want to tease it so that they're so intrigued that they keep swiping. And one of the simple processes that I've created to write my hooks is to break it down and give them, tips. And I tell them how many tips I'm going to give them. So an example of that was, for mine, I'll be like, 5 things that you are doing on your Instagram that is killing your reach. So in order to find out what those 5 things are, you need to swipe across the landing page carousel and go on to pages 2 to 6, with page 7 being the call to action. And on each of those individual slides of the carousel, I give a new piece of information.
Right, got it. Okay. So a number is important. Not always. It becomes a little bit then, but a number can be a good thing about a hook, yeah? Because what does the number do? Does that make it feel easy, manageable, bite-sized bits of information here?
So.
I think so too.
I think so too. I think there's a real psychology behind, I'm going to learn 3 things. I can do that. Yeah. That makes it tangible and easy. Not like here's 25 things, because that's really overwhelming. Is something, and I would love everyone at home to just try this and see what kind of uptake you get. And that could be the most requested haircut in January 2026. And then I guess the hook underneath that is the results will surprise you.
Okay. So good.
Saying, look, there's a new look happening, and this is what's being requested, but it's not necessarily what you think it's going to be. Take a look, come with us on the journey, and we'll talk you through why this particular look is popular, requested, and, the foundations of what that looks like.
Yeah. On the hook, so the first slide in the carousel, is there a certain amount of words that you should have? Or, within a ballpark? As minimal as possible, right?
Yes,
okay, so
I think no more than 1 sentence.
Right, okay. So it's all about arousing curiosity, making people want to know.
It really is.
Yeah, okay.
And sometimes I reverse engineer that. So depending on what I'm like, I've got this great hair look that I really want to showcase, but what's the teaser that I can create that will make people want to swipe to see what it is without putting it on that landing page?
Yeah, okay, all right. Let's go to the call to action component of it. What would be a good call to action for a salon to be having as the last thing on their carousel? What sort of, thing might you see in there?
I mean, the call to action to book is the really obvious one. However, I think at times that can fall on deaf ears because clients are so used to seeing that call to action, book now, book now. However, if you make something that is a little bit more exclusive, and this will tie into your larger marketing output, it could be, we have 5 availabilities over this period of time if you were interested in taking one of those appointments.
Yeah.
Make it exclusive. Okay. I mean, the other one, depending on what the information is and what the value add in the carousel is, and the one that I find the most useful at the moment is save this post to refer to later, especially when it's a hair tip or something that they're going to be using at home. And they go, actually, I will click that save button and I will come back and see this again because I've received value in the content. I know from my own, I look at my saved profile all the time, and the best ideas are the ones that come from there, and then I layer on top of that.
Okay. So urgency, exclusivity, that sort of thing at the end as a call to action. All right. I missed out the bit in the middle. And obviously, the bit in the middle is, well, that's the content, and that can be about all sorts of different things.
Yes.
What can we, because it's about all sorts of things, it's difficult to make a generalization about what it should be. What would you say? What bits of advice would you give around the content that's in the middle? So we're talking slide 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that sort of thing. Yeah. What sort of things should you or shouldn't you do with that?
Well, I've got 2 answers. And one thing that I refer to that I was taught in year 4 about writing a narrative is who, what, when, where, and why.
Yeah.
And whenever you're telling a narrative and building a story, I often refer to, of those things, what is it that I can teach? The who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and sometimes the how. So depending on the topic, I would review that and see where I can implement that. The other would be, one of the hooks might be, these are the 3 non-negotiable hair products that you need to have in your hair care wardrobe. And I would break that down into, from a basic salon point of view, your shampoo line and your wet care, your leave-in treatments, your styling products, and your finishing products. So again, very much, creating a beginning, a middle, an end, and wrapping it up very cohesively.
Right. Okay. When I do them, they're nearly always not pictures. It's just text on a very plain background. Is there any advantages or disadvantages about whether you should be using text or plain backgrounds or combining images with plain backgrounds? What would you say about that? What have you seen?
I would say in your case, you're doing it right.
Mm.
However, if the business has a different offering and you're a salon and it's a little bit more visual, I would test and measure. And
Mm.
I would do some carousels that have, the images. Some
Yeah.
are a combination of text and images, and some that's just text. And
Yeah.
you'd probably have to do 3 or 4 of each of those varieties to be able to see which one really resonates with the audience. However, I do think that that first page, the hook, it doesn't need to be, visually stimulating. Actually, you need to cut through with the words first. And that really needs to hit you in the face.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one of the things, sort of going off in a little bit of a different direction for a minute, is the role of ChatGPT or AI in general. And when it first came onto the market, so 3 and a bit years ago, everyone was a bit like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with that? And I mean, now everyone is all over it. And the obvious thing that they're using it for, salons, I think in particular, is creating carousels and even more so, creating text that accompanies the carousel.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm going to suggest to you is that a lot of times people have become over reliant on it. And so now when you look at stuff that's produced by ChatGPT, it all starts to sound the same. So yes, it might be grammatically, perfect or better than the way we talk, but there's a lot to be said for just the way we talk. So what's your advice to people about not becoming overly reliant on AI when they're trying to produce a carousel? How do you find that balance between the help that AI can give you, which is fantastic in terms of speeding up the process, but still letting you come through, still letting your personality, your creativity come through in the process?
When I use AI, which is all day, every day,
Mm.
and for example, if I'm looking for captions for a carousel and it will, I'll prompt it and it will generate its suggestion. A lot of the time, I never feel it's conversational. And
Mm.
that's the edit that I make. I
Yeah.
actually want to adapt the framework it's given me, but make it sound like I'm actually speaking, almost like a script.
Yeah.
I want to be able to narrate over the top of it and it sound like me rather than just read out some text. So
Yeah.
it's that human element. And, for me being an Australian, if I can throw in some slang that's very relevant,
Mm.
the market knows that that's actually me and it's authentic.
Yeah.
So I do actually edit a lot of the content that I get from AI to humanize it in that way,
Yeah.
because I've tuned out to all of the captions that feel like AI, and I can tell by
Mm.
the structure of the sentence and
Mm.
how it sounds that it's AI. We all can. So I definitely think that the people that I follow that do really well, they authentically write their captions still.
Mm. Yeah.
Or
Interesting.
they edit what they've got to make it their own. And AI is great at replicating your voice and your
Mm.
style. However, it doesn't sound like a conversation. It sounds like something you read as a
Yeah.
script.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. All right. Now, one of the things that we were talking about before we started recording was how the Instagram algorithm in 2026 is changing. Like it always changes, it's constantly evolved
Yeah.
since the day it first started. But one of the changes about 2026 is that it's now rewarding saves and shares more than likes. Talk to us about that. What does that mean for people?
Where that has come from is major corporations and media that use socials as a measuring tool for, how well their content is doing and their return on their investment.
Yeah.
And they came up with something that they refer to as EMV, which is earned media value. And so they might have a specific quota on if it received this many likes, then the value turns into a monetized
Oh,
piece
right.
of value on ROI.
Yeah.
However, the likes are worth something, a token,
Hmm.
but the saves and the shares are worth more. The saves because people are coming back to it, and the shares because it has virality. Liking something or even commenting doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's being pushed to another user, whereas a share
Mm.
does. So it rewards that a lot more.
Okay, that's interesting. Um, I save a lot of stuff, but I never get back to it. I'm sure
You
I'm
need
not the only
content.
one. So, yeah, does that impact on stuff if you don't revisit it? Because I do save stuff. I look at things, I go, well, that's interesting. I must get back to that. So I'll save it. But to be really honest with you, I've never gone back to any of my saved folders and gone, oh, I must, I've got nothing to do today. I'll look at the saved content that I've made and, dig into it. What are your thoughts about that?
I would say the reason that saved still has value, even if you don't revisit it, is
Mm,
because it's building so much of your metadata profile. It's telling Meta so much more about you than
mm,
everything else because
yeah.
it's highly prioritizing this as very important content.
Yeah.
And so
Okay,
it's
that's
being
good.
able to read and measure all of the things that you've saved. Let's
Yeah.
pattern match what they all say. And now we're
Mm.
going to build Anthony's algorithm to just feed more of that to him.
Oh, that's very interesting. Right, that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
It
So
does.
if I'm a salon owner listening to this, how does now knowing this impact on what I should be doing in terms of the content that I produce?
My advice to any salon who's like, okay, now I know all of this, how do I actually go out and execute content that's going to deliver and be optimized? Firstly, look at your high performing content that you've had previously. Assess what it is. Is there a common thread between all of it? Whether it's the topic, the time that you post, who you've tagged, or what the messaging is. And I would dare say things that are more personal and more vulnerable tend to be your higher performing content. You'll start to notice that pattern. And then it gives you a foundation of this is what we have to repeat. You'll also find that same pattern in the content that bombs, that no one likes and no one responds to. And I think it's just everything is a test and measure of some sort in any form of marketing. And it's
Mm.
just making sure you are observant enough, but also you're checking the back end of your data so that it can speak to that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a difference? Like, because everything we've spoken about so far is pretty much about the content, meaning the words, the messaging. Um, let's just ask the same sort of question from a design perspective.
Mm.
Like you're big on design, but obviously you're big on the messaging side of it as well. Um, what's most important, the design or the messaging that the words that you're coming up with, and how do you sort of address that balance?
I think they're equally important. However, in many, many cases, I build the same content and purely create a visual strategy. And then I
Hmm.
mirror that content with just a text strategy, going back to what I say about the test and learn. And I'll put them out at a fairly similar time, perhaps days apart. And generally, I'll see a big difference in the uptake. And over
Okay.
time, I've been able to observe that what content with images serves really well. And generally, that is like hair fashion, hair trends. And when I share something that's business and strategy related, that's very much text. So, in a salon situation, I would say when you're forecasting looks and you're showcasing the beautiful work that you do, that would be one strategy. However, when you're sharing, opportunities around we have gift cards available or anything that's more of a marketing piece, I don't feel that you need to necessarily have amazing creative for that to be valuable. As long as the client says, I'm going to spend, £100 and get an extra on a gift voucher and get a £25 bonus. That's the value. So the value will come in different ways depending on the message.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that's interesting. So, and that is, I suppose, how I think about it. That our
Yeah.
carousels are very much more about text-driven messaging, um, and I think back to some of the things that have not had the traction that we thought that they would, were very image heavy. Not hair so much, but like salon design. Like we might have good messaging over a great looking salon, and you think that's going to do really well, but it actually doesn't, no matter what the salon is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I often wonder about, does one sort of like conflict with the other? If there's just words that are good font, good messaging, the right size, not too many words on the screen at a time, um, you've got nothing else to distract you. It really makes you focus on that message or not. But I suppose for me, I always think of myself as like, well, at heart, I'm a hairdresser, and hairdressers are very visually orientated. So, what is the visual that's going to capture this? And I suppose for us, that's why we put so much effort into the simplicity of the design, the font, the colors, the spacing, all of that sort of stuff is really important, isn't it? It's
It
incredibly
is.
important. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, listen, one of the things that you told me about was that Instagram is increasingly showing more content to non-followers, based on AI feeds. So what does that mean to salon owners? Because to me, it sounds like, well, that's a good thing, surely, because more people are going to see your content. So talk to us about how that works and what the sort of implications are.
It's a great thing because when anyone thinks back to when they first started their Instagram page, their likes would grow, fairly consistently, and it would grow and grow. And then you kind of hit a wall and everything just stops. And then you're kind of, really pushing to get that little bit of growth.
Yeah.
I think we've got an opportunity for that algorithm to open back up again because AI is, finding the people that save content that is very similar to what you're posting, and it's
Yeah.
going to naturally push and, populate your feed with that content, knowing that it's probably something that's going to be of interest to you. And so there is real value in that. I think what we need to now recognize is we have moved into a brand new era of Instagram. So a hashtag isn't a searchable tool. It's not something that links your content to being searchable and findable because AI can do that already based on the pattern recognition of its followers and your content.
Mm. So hashtags have become redundant. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. All right. From a salon owner's point of view, well, two things. First of all, I'll just go back to that. So should you still be using hashtags, or is it just not relevant anymore?
I don't feel that it's relevant. However, I would say this. Anything that you can do that makes your location searchable in Instagram is a great thing because you only want to speak to a market that is going to be a bum on a seat, and that's within your local community. So
Mm-hmm.
if using a community hashtag in your particular market and there's people that still just search that hashtag, great. There are still going to be people of a generation that are going to go down that really manual route, and that's
Right.
that's fantastic. So there's still going to be value there. However,
Mm.
you don't have to do the heavy lifting as a growth strategy because it's going to happen for you already.
Right. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of generations, the older generation, obviously they've learned Instagram, they've learned the importance of hashtags, and now you're saying it's no longer relevant. It's not that they don't work anymore; they still work, but arguably with AI now embedded in everything more and more, you simply don't need it. Okay, so
Right.
if I'm a salon owner and I'm listening to everything that we've spoken about today, how can I capitalize specifically on this thing that we're talking about, that AI is now going to be showing your content to non-followers, and we can all see that, yeah, I think that's a good idea. What can we do to capitalize on it? Can we do anything, or is it just like in the lap of the AI gods?
Yeah, no, I think you can do something. And For me, it would be, and this is probably a little bit unorthodox, it's just the way my marketing mind thinks. I think you should be using your content at this moment in time to articulate what your point of difference is amongst all of the other salons in your area. Be really clear about the point of difference, and also be really clear about the salon experience. Because as we see more and more tech and AI come in, human connection and human service is increasing in its value. So capitalize on that. So perhaps that content is the walkthrough from the second point of view camera, open the door and give someone an experience of what your business is like. And the little things really matter. So if you do something with an essential oil at the beginning of a service where you can say, you seem like you have had a really hectic morning. I'm just going to get you to breathe this oil in for 3 breaths, and I'm just going to completely reset you into relax mode. Those kind of things, I want to go to a salon that does that. If you do those sorts of things, let everyone know about it. Sure, your clients already know, but there's new growth and new followers and clients out there that don't know that you do it. So now's the opportunity to really share that.
Okay, so it's really sort of amplifying the human element.
Yes.
Not the AI. The AI bit has got it all down pat, quicker and faster than what you can, so to speak. So it's look for things that the AI can't do, the human element, how you make people feel, the emotional connections. Yeah, okay, that's very good. Okay, so look, last thing before we start to wrap up is I did ask you before we got on this call, I said at the end, I'm going to ask you for your top 3 actionable takeaways that listeners should be doing today to ensure that the Instagram marketing is working effectively in 2026. What are your top 3 things?
What we've discussed about carousels and telling a story is a really important marketing touch point. And telling a story is emotional engagement. And if you've got a team around you, or you've perhaps got a history of a career that you can share. So one of the strategies, I've written all my carousels for the next few months. And I thought, you know what? A carousel is a timeline because, you've got a beginning and a middle and the end. I'm actually going to take people through my career timeline and do that in the form of a carousel because I've got different eras of a career. I think be clever with things like that. It could be different eras of your salon. It could be different eras of ways that we've done blonde, and explore what you did in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I mean, really use it to create emotional stories that people find interesting.
Okay. I was so busy listening, I weren't counting. Were there 3 things in there?
No, that was just one.
Oh, that's just number 1. Right. Okay. So that's the first one. All right.
The second
I like that.
Is to save the content that you think brings you value so that you can use that as a foundation to build your own content from. Okay. Especially if you see that someone's done it and it's worked really, really well for them. And it could be a salon on the other side of the world. You can take the concept and make it your own, and you know that it's delivered some fantastic results. So your saved button, also the Instagram algorithm is going to start sending you more of that, as we know that you saved it.
Okay, so that's some good points there.
The last thing is that the human engagement sets you apart from all the bots, right? And my tip on that is when you're actually commenting and responding underneath, don't make it sound botty. Actually only comment if you're going to say something that is a meaningful conversation piece. Because you'll see lots of people just go, we call it footprinting, right? So we're going to leave a digital footprint in that comment and over here so that everyone can see that we're on there and we're engaged. But if it's just superficial, it actually doesn't serve a purpose. So make sure that every comment and piece of engagement that you roll out from yourself and your brand has meaning.
That's interesting. Do you have, when you post something, do you find that, you might get 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever comments if you're lucky. It's hard to sort of treat every one of them individually. With authenticity, rather than go, hey, thanks for your comment, really appreciate it. Do you know what I mean? You do 2 or 3 variations on that, and it's like, okay, what now? So what are your tips around that? Do you not have that? You treat everyone as a genuine individual
I
comment?
try to. I
Yeah,
try to. However, a lot of the comments that you do get are very botty, like
yeah,
great post. So,
yeah,
I mean, there's only
exactly.
so much that you can be responsive.
Yeah,
And a lot of the time, and it's very genuine, my response will be, I just went and had a look at your page. You know, great holiday you had last week or something like that. And I
mm,
find the second they feel pretty special, like, oh, thanks. Thanks for having a look
yeah,
at that. I really build great relationships with people in that way. And it feels good. Like it feels really nice to have that connection. And then they might start to DM me because they feel comfortable and they want to ask a question.
yeah, yeah. Okay, interesting. All right. So listen, I consciously wanted to keep this to around the 30-minute mark because there's a lot of information that you impart on these podcast episodes. And so rather than keep going, I find that's overwhelming for people. So that's why I've asked if you'll come back, 2 or 3 times during the year. We can touch on different topics around social media and Canva, because I know that's another one of your pets. And I'm also aware of the fact that it changes so quickly. You think of Instagram today versus Instagram a year ago or 5 years ago, it's totally different, and it'll be different in another year as well. So I think it's good to, be able to dip in and out of these. So with that said, we need to start wrapping up this week's episode. By the time this goes out live, people would be aware of our Salon marketing course. And I've already mentioned that you are a co-presenter in that, doing stuff on social media, Instagram and Canva in particular. So I'll be putting a link in the show notes of today's episode, inviting listeners to attend a free introductory webinar on all things to do with salon marketing. In the meantime, though, Hayley, whereabouts can people connect with you on Instagram or other social media channels?
My agency is Six Underground Media, so I've kept that handle really succinct across all of our platforms. So at Six Underground Media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and you can message and DM anytime. I really love getting questions. I find that so valuable. It tells me what the market is doing and what I need to be educating. So yeah, questions
Yeah.
always welcome.
Good, good. Okay, well, look, I'll put those links in the show notes for today's podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast episode with Hayley Mears, then you've enjoyed it. Do me a favor and share it with people you know who would also enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. Have a great week. And don't forget to tune in next Tuesday for another great episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. So bye for now.